You're listening to FitPro Sessions with Parallel Coaching, season number 4, episode 1. Hi, I'm Neale Bergman. In today's podcast, I'm talking with Hayley all about the rise of common clinical conditions. So stay tuned.
Hi, I'm Neale Bergman.
And I'm Hayley Bergman. Over the last 10 years, we've helped thousands of fitness professionals to get qualified, learn with simplicity, and coach clients with confidence.
We're the first to say that learning and being a FitPro doesn't have to be hard work, and that with the right structure, support and resources, you can become a confident and knowledgeable fitness professional that is dedicated to more.
So how do you learn, qualify and kickstart as a FitPro? This is the FitPro Sessions Podcast with Parallel Coaching.
I'm so excited. Welcome to season number 4. And we're talking all about health. We're talking about clinical conditions, and we're going to go down the rabbit hole all around clinical conditions and the rise of them over the last 10, 15, 20, 30 years.
Absolutely. And how this impacts the rise of health-related exercise as a result, and that it's not just about advanced training and really pushing our clients, but what are the lifestyle changes that are needed?
I think that's going to be the key, is the link to health professionals,
yes.
Health and fitness well-being professionals. So linking to what a level 2 fitness instructor can do, a level 3 personal trainer,
Pilates,
yoga, exercise to music, and how inevitably our clients are going to have some of these conditions. So we're going to jump down the rabbit hole. This is episode number 1. And at the moment, the plan is 8 episodes for season number 4. So we're going to drop 1 session per week every Thursday. Season 3 was bi-weekly, so it's Tuesday, Thursday. But season 1 and 2 were all on a Thursday.
Yes,
and we're going to go back to one a week. Welcome to season 4.
Welcome to season 4. So what you can expect over the rest of season 4 is a deep dive into a few common clinical conditions. So things like cardiovascular conditions, metabolic conditions, understanding more about respiratory conditions, musculoskeletal, mental health.
Do you know what I'm so excited about? Is, for those of you that don't know, Hayley's background is within Exercise Referral. And when you listen to her speak and just roll these conditions off and understand the prevalence, understand the conditions, understand the
how to work with them,
the medications, the tactics, the strategy, it's all inside Hayley's head, and it's going to be...
It's also the stuff I really, really get excited about.
Completely. Because if you go, just jump back to your story very quickly. So we're talking 2009, 10-ish time for a good 3 years.
Yeah,
go for
absolutely. So I basically set up an exercise referral gym within a retirement village, and I absolutely loved it. At any one time, I probably had about 300 members. I just worked with them personally. There wasn't anyone else in the gym setting. So I got to work with everybody in that setting. And rather than it just being those that are over the age of 55 and able to live in the retirement village, it actually became a hub for those that had certain conditions that couldn't work or go to the gym anywhere else. In particular, stroke, disability, working with clients that needed that extra assistance.
Completely. And it was so exciting for me to kind of sit in on a number of those sessions and watch, not just one-to-one, but small group. And, I remember some of the days you would have like 18, 20 people in a chair-based exercise, but they'd have multiple different conditions. But the one thing that I always left with, and they definitely left with, was this feeling of being happy, this big smile across their face, and just feeling of connection with everybody else in the room. Because up until that point, I spoke to, and I got to know a couple of them quite well.
Yeah, absolutely.
As well, was this feeling of being on their own, and that almost no one was really on their side or listening. I got the impression they were kind of banging their head against a brick wall, and they were living with this condition or their conditions, and it was painful physically and mentally.
Yeah.
And yet these sessions provided so much more than just the reduction of their pain or symptoms, or even at times, putting the brakes on their condition.
Yeah,
it helped them so much more
beyond that.
It was also
the first time I realised that exercise is not just about training the physical body, but the importance of it in social and mental sort of health, really. How do you really move that person forwards? And if they can leave with a smile, they'll come back again next week. If they come back again next week.
And if we go back to the principle of fit, I know I always return back to these level 2 principles, but they are the foundation of everything. So if you had a triangle, and if you're looking on screen, imagine a triangle, the baseline, the base of that triangle is your level 2 qualifications. And the main principle in there is frequency, intensity, time and type.
Yeah.
And
if they can get the frequency of coming back every week, maybe once a week, maybe twice a week, building it up, then that is golden, and it allows them to get some progress.
So whilst you were doing this, I focused my attention. I was already working within training providers and teaching all over the country, in and out of the Middle East, and my focus was obesity. And I have this really odd obsession with why anybody does anything, but ultimately, why does somebody end up with obesity? Why do they end up in this state whereby their BMI is 30 to 35 plus? And consequently, I went on to help and develop one of the first level 4 obesity and diabetes qualifications, and run that through reps. And it was an incredible time because I was working closely with the Welsh National Assembly, kind of the top flight health professionals,
heavily in the NHS,
and heavily within the NHS, and getting them fully equipped and qualified, and learning so much from their another perspective, not necessarily working end user.
The other thing about obesity is that I find fascinating is that it's the linchpin to so many other conditions.
100%, completely.
As a result of obesity, so many other conditions come out of it. And also other conditions link back to obesity.
And whilst there's not a huge amount of data around the cause and effect of one causing the other, we can see that if somebody does have obesity, there is a link to other conditions, even though from a research perspective, it's not backed necessarily by cause and effect relationship or correlation.
Yes.
However, obesity is a primary factor around metabolic conditions, and therefore we're talking about things like hypertension, stroke and so forth. So there is data, very strong data, that backs up obesity being the driving force.
And it's all on the rise, right?
And it's all on the rise. So
which brings us straight into today.
Go for it.
What is going on in terms of common clinical conditions is that they are all on the rise. Now, when I say common clinical conditions, I don't just mean obesity like we were talking about. I mean hypertension, mental health problems, musculoskeletal issues, respiratory problems. All of them are on the rise, and I think you've got some stats.
I have. I mean, it's not just about just throwing stats at you. I want to have the talk about a couple of stats, but then link it to how it impacts us as fitness professionals. So let's rewind, say back to 1970s, and generic stats here again. You could easily go and find a document on Google, confirmation bias, to find and prove this wrong, okay? But if we look at the general trend of obesity during the 70s, roughly 8% of men, 9% of women across the UK were considered overweight to obese.
Yes.
Okay, so today, fast forward 40, 50 years, okay, we're talking about data from 2018 to 2019, we're talking about 28.7% are overweight, with a further 35%. That was obese. Obese with a 30 further. Let me start again. 28.7% over obese. Okay, so BMI 30 plus.
Yes.
Okay, with a further 35% considered in the overweight category.
Wow.
So BMI 25 to 29.9.
So that's got a bit. I'm rubbish at maths. 60% that are overweight or obese? Surely.
Yeah, completely.
Yeah.
So if you on screen now, if you're watching this on YouTube, but for those of you that are listening, if you imagine an X and Y axis, a classic graph, and you imagine it kind of being flat throughout this line throughout the 30s and 40s, 1950s, and then steadily creeping up 1960s and 70s through the 80s, 90s and noughties to the last 10 years, we've had this exponential rise in obesity.
Yeah.
So if we look at and just say on average, 7 out of 10 adults are overweight to obese.
Yeah.
Those people are turning up to the gym. Maybe they aren't, maybe they're not, okay? Which is another conversation. Let's go there very quickly because it excites me.
Yeah.
We've never lived in a time where the amount of diets and opportunities to go and get fit is at its all-time greatest.
All-time high.
All-time greatest.
Without
Yet,
a doubt.
we have our all-time greatest obesity levels. Those two don't correlate. You would have thought that with the amount of opportunities to go and get healthy, fit, faster, fitter, stronger, leaner, meaner. The constant kind of battering on social media of calorie deficit.
You would think we would all be healthier,
You would have
fitter,
thought
leaner, right?
that the numbers would start to plateau off on the breaks, but they're not. They're continuing to rise.
Which shows it's not really just about the provision of things.
Completely.
It's about people choosing to do it and take action.
But it's a behavioural change issue, I'll have you consider. But that's on to another part of this podcast or on later episodes. So if you just consider that, 6, 7 out of 10 clients are going to turn up would fit, from a statistical perspective, somebody that is overweight to obese.
And what I find really interesting is that all of those people that have common clinical conditions, including obesity, they need specialist knowledge. They need something more than somebody
I'm going to put
isn't.
the brakes on you there just very quickly. So if you look at other clinical conditions, such as, let's just jump into the mental health.
Yeah.
Okay. And again, let's just look at, say, 1970s, 1980s. Okay. It wasn't prevalent. It was acknowledged, but the numbers again reflect that of the obesity numbers. Very low, and they exponential rise. I was reading a journal this morning from The Lancet online that 1 in 6 people have experienced some kind of mental health disorder in the last 7 days.
I was going to say, and also with all the COVID-19 and social isolation and everything else going on, I can only foresee that
So when we're talking mental health, we're talking
stress, anxiety, depression,
bipolar, schizophrenia, those types of things.
Yes.
Okay, so again, the numbers, the likelihood of somebody turning up is astronomically higher versus you being a personal trainer or FitPro 30, 40 years ago.
Yeah.
And again,
if you're more likely to have somebody that is obese or has these.
Yeah, and when you look around for common clinical conditions such as low back pain, obesity, type 2 diabetes, type 1 diabetes, obviously there's very difference between those two, type 1 and type 2, and I want to drop as much knowledge as possible on a later episode where we just look at
dive into
those two. Osteoporosis, osteoarthritis, rheumatoid arthritis, joint replacement, knee replacement, hip replacement.
You've got it.
They've all been on the increase. Now, my question is, why is that? Was it down to a lack of reporting? Is there a flaw in the statistics? Are we more aware of it now? Take mental health.
Is there just more testing?
Is there just more testing? Exactly. So take mental health, for example. It was maybe a taboo subject to open up with 30, 40, 50 years.
Whereas now mental health awareness is a massive.
And so that alone has allowed people to maybe step forwards, and therefore more people are in those statistics. But either way, we can see that the rise of these clinical conditions, I'm going to say, is a runaway train with no brakes on.
And also there's a problem associated to this that isn't just about how people feel in the moment, but also their life expectancy isn't necessarily changing or coming down.
But their quality of life is.
So the quality of life is the biggest problem.
Yes.
Not the fact that somebody is going to die sooner as a result. So when you use this leverage point, I've used this before with the client and they've turned around and said, I don't mind if I die a little bit earlier and just as a result of the lifestyle I have now.
Obscure conversation to even go down.
Really becoming the reality. The reality becomes actually you live the same amount of time, but what you can do in that time and how you feel isn't going to be as optimal.
In the moment as well, because some of these conditions could be debilitating even at certain times of the day. So for example, somebody with arthritis, which typical sites for arthritis could be in the hand, the
spine.
So if you think about a person that's got arthritis, and we're seeing that these clinical conditions aren't just developing, they were age onset. Historically, they've been age onset conditions, but what we're seeing is that younger and younger people are developing these conditions, and it's not necessarily with age comes the deterioration of the body. So if we took, for example, arthritis, and we had said like someone's got arthritis in the hand, their dexterity or their stiffness in their hands or their joints first thing in the morning could be debilitating to the point that they can't brush their teeth, they can't make a cup of coffee, they can't hold something, they couldn't hold a barbell, for example, or do a deadlift. So the considerations for this person from a pain perspective in the micro moment could be the difference between somebody going, do you know what, I've longed to be able to do that. I love that I can now do that.
But what you highlighted there was this difference of that person. It's one condition, and I know we don't want to go and label somebody, and somebody doesn't want to feel labelled, but that one condition comes with some considerations and some problems.
No, but
now, it's knowing how to be able to deal with that.
But it is a label. They have that condition.
But it's knowing how to be able to deal with that.
Yeah, completely.
That makes the difference. They're not going to come with the same non-problems that somebody that is totally healthy, no conditions, can just go and train at any time.
Well, let's jump back to the base of that pyramid, level 2,
go for it.
which was those principles of training. You had the law of specificity, which had to be specific.
To the goal.
You had to the goal. You had the principle of overload that you had to
achieve, overload, make it more challenging.
But you had the next one. There's 6 or 7 of these that you need to lower at level 2, but that's not the time or place. But the next one I want to talk about is the law or principle of individuality.
That's where you're going.
Completely. So you can have one person turn up with arthritis and they have no issues. The next person turn up with arthritis and they're like, their hands are, for a better word, almost totally deformed and unable to use them. And it doesn't matter about their age, but they've got this condition. And it's how do we work with them in a safe and effective way in an individuality perspective and bring about huge knowledge and huge confidence.
Yes, and that becomes really powerful because being able to work with them regardless of their condition means that they too can still make progress, get health related benefits, achieve a goal, whatever their reason for being there is.
Completely.
And that can still happen. Now, I know you listening right now, you've probably thrown out a term or a phrase called, I just want to help others.
I think it's, if I rewind and I go back into the classroom for the last 10 years, certainly on level 2 and level 3, one of the first tutorials is all about what makes an outstanding FitPro.
Yes.
Okay. And one of the questions I ask is that, why are you here? Why you? Why now?
Yes.
And everybody goes around in their small little groups, talks 1-to-1, 1-to-2, small groups of 3. And my discussion is, I just want to help people. I want to help people go through maybe the same transformation I've had or the same problem I've overcome, but I want to be able to pass on my knowledge and I want to go and help people do something, change their life
something
through fitness, health, well-being and nutrition.
Or improve in a way that you have personally.
Yeah, completely.
Exactly. And that helping somebody relies on 2 things. Probably lots more, but 2 particular things I can think of straight away.
Yeah, you go for 2 and I'll see. Oh, there's always more.
There's always more than 2.
We're segueing to the 3rd one.
Hey! I wonder if anybody's got a tally of how many times we've said words like that.
I'll let you into a little secret before we go.
I think we've said it on it.
There's a number of words that we try and trip each other up with or try and get words into every podcast. So
Segway's one of those.
Segue is one of them. There we go. Anyway, what are your 2... I
can't remember what I was saying.
Why don't we look at the notes? Because ultimately this is planned.
I was going to say that helping clients, if your aim and your possibility is that you really want to go and help people, then there's a part of that whereby there's a chance to help more people, so a bigger pool of people. Now, like Neale said, with the common clinical conditions at the moment, if that takes up 60 to 70% just being obese and overweight, then those types of clients you're not technically able to work with unless you're suitably qualified, let alone those with the other clinical conditions, which reduces your pool of clients that you can help.
I call that a knowledge gap or a client gap.
Yeah.
Okay, so the client gap here is ultimately I can work with a huge, vast majority of people. Mm-hmm. However, if I have, let's say, a circuit class with 18 people in or a boot camp with 30 people in, we are guaranteed that the majority of those people turning up are because they want to lose some weight, get fitter, get toned and feel happier, feel more confident and overall move from a place of where they are now to where they want to be. Yeah. But I'm going to say the majority of the time that's a reduction of weight. Yeah. And you could almost guarantee that there's going to be back pain. There's going to be other conditions. There's going to be hypertension in there. Yeah. There's going to be loads in there. Yeah. So now if I just strip away all of those people, I now have not a smaller pool of people that I'm working with. But I don't necessarily think about it as a qualification that you need. I think it's a knowledge gap.
It's a knowledge. Like how you said about the arthritis in the morning. I wonder how many of you listening turned around and thought, oh, I didn't know that. There's so much we don't know about.
But we don't know what we don't know.
Exactly.
What don't you know?
Well, I don't know. I don't know what I don't know.
Exactly.
But so much we don't know that there becomes a knowledge gap. And like you said, there becomes a client gap in the fact that there are this pool of clients that means that you're reducing who you can't help because of a limitation in knowledge.
And that's what I love about, for example, exercise referral or working with clinical conditions and filling this knowledge gap up, because it allows you to take the science-backed knowledge and confidently apply it in a vocational setting and say, right, I understand that this happens to specific joints due to arthritis. The pathology pathway is this. Pathology meaning how it's developed. Okay. The prevalence of it is here. This is what happens at that particular joint. Okay. This is what makes it worse. This is what makes it better.
This is the types of medications.
This is the types of medication. This is the side effects of the medications. Now, this is the type of advice I have to give and cannot give and stay within my remit. But ultimately, how do I make this condition better? How do I put the brakes on this condition?
How do we manage it?
How do we manage this condition?
And prevent onset of more.
But also, what does all this knowledge actually mean in terms of, for me as a personal trainer, of a practical application, knowing that they're going to get some morning stiffness in their joints, knowing that they might not be able to have full range of movement first thing in the morning to deadlift down and pick something up comfortably.
You change the advice you give, right?
But even though they've got to, I suppose you want them to do that, and they're looking around the room going, well, everyone else is doing it. I even though there's pain and discomfort inside, they might not say anything about it. So it's knowing that who's who in the zoo from an individuality perspective and making very, very strong, clear adaptations to your exercise and planning to bring about a much better session, a safer session, a more effective session. But dare I say, the effectiveness isn't just in, say, the acute planning variables, but it's what happens up here to your client's mind.
Yes.
So they bend down and go, this person's thought about this exercise, the weight is already jacked up on a step, which means I don't have to bend down as far. And I've got, I don't know, I'm using a towel. It
feels more achievable.
Exactly, you got there.
And I was talking to one of our learners that's on Exercise Referral, in fact she's completed, but she was working with a client that has thyroid condition.
Yeah, an underactive thyroid.
That's the one. And she's on a lot of thyroxine, and she really believed that she could not lose weight. So we gave some advice to this learner or FitPro to go out and talk to this client. Now, what's really cool is that this client has been trying to lose weight for ages, never lost it, really believed that she couldn't because of her condition. But what turned around is that this Exercise Referral FitPro turned around and gave her some really clear knowledge and really clear education to show her that she could still lose weight. Next week of working with her, lost 4 pounds.
Exactly.
But amazing.
But that's
I think it's belief.
That's
right?
a knowledge gap, but it's it's delivered in a confident way.
And it's because the client was able to change something mentally.
Convert mindset. And that's, I think, one of the most powerful things you get from this is the ability to convert mindset, but that only comes when you deliver it in a confident way. Imagine now if we turned up and we were talking to you and we weren't confident of what we were talking about. Not only would you switch off, but you wouldn't necessarily have enough know, like, or trust in our delivery. Whereas because we turn up confidently and we deliver it, it rolls off the tongue, it's ad-lib, we know it, it's deep, it's in here. I'm going to bang my head again like that.
That's a bit odd.
But it's true, right?
And then as a result, we can help more people because it comes across clearer with the knowledge.
Completely.
Yes.
Because so many clients are left with or develop this belief about their condition and how that impacts life in the micro, in the moment, in the day, in the week. And they experience the pain and discomfort or the mindset discomfort. And this belief gets stronger and stronger over time. And the longer you believe something, the harder it is to be able to challenge that, because these beliefs become habits.
Yeah.
The way determines our outcome of our day.
100%
okay?
It does.
And so it's up to us as FitPros to show up with enough congruency, enough confidence and enough knowledge to say, I know exactly where you're at right now. I'm going to turn up with huge amounts of empathy. I'm going to step into your shoes and see life through your eyes right now. And I can see and feel and hear what it's like to have a day in the life of my client.
Yeah.
But then if I step back into my shoes, I also know what it's like to be to challenge you with all of this knowledge and confidence. And now it's my job as a FitPro, as a health-related exercise referral instructor, is to challenge your mindset and convert mindset and challenge your beliefs over time, so that if you do believe that you've got an underactive thyroid, or you do believe that you know life stops because of your arthritis, or you can't do something because of your low back pain, or you've got fear avoidance because your hip was replaced 5 years ago.
Yeah.
Okay. Whatever the condition is or the situation,
you can work with that one person.
We
to get
we
that
know
result.
we can work with that one person. And
And
that's
you
what I
can
love
make
about
that
it.
change. Now, what I love is that you've started by talking about, we've spoke so much about the detail of changing one person's world, but the impact of changing this graph that Neale was saying about this, the way that common clinical conditions are steadily increasing.
Steadily, I'm going to say it's a runaway train. It's exponential.
It's going up. But we can't change everybody overnight. We can only start by changing one thing.
Yeah, like if you think about it, it's a bit like an aeroplane going along a runway. It's kind of like that. So it goes along the runway, it pulls up, and it's got a steady increase, and all of a sudden it just takes off. But right now in 2020, we're not just an aeroplane that's climbing to 35,000 feet. We're like, I don't know, one of Elon Musk's Atlantic rocket just going directly straight up. Do you know what I mean? It's scary.
It is scary. But how do we stall that?
Well,
so this is what I find fascinating. And you related this before to about climate change, actually, which I found really interesting. So we take this big concept. So the big concept is climate change, or the big concept the common clinical conditions being like this. The fact that common clinical conditions are skyrocketing.
There's the context. Yeah, wicked.
So it is skyrocketing right now, which could be equivalent to, say, climate change.
Well, it could,
how
but
do
I
we
want to step back
affect
a bit, because I think we're going back 3 or 4 minutes into this podcast, and we said everybody wants to help people in fitness.
Yeah.
Okay. We all want to help somebody get faster, fitter, stronger, leaner, and meaner. We all want to help somebody get from A to B. We want to help somebody lose weight. We want to help somebody that's had a similar transformation to us. So like right now, like nod your head, go, yeah, that's me. I want to help people through fitness, through nutrition.
Yeah, that's me.
And yet we have this knowledge gap or practical application gap, a process gap, whereby we want to help somebody, but actually we're not actually helping enough people, even though deep down our values are, I want to help as many people as possible.
Yes.
I mean, that's one of the reasons why I started Parallel. There's lots of reasons, but another reason was, there's only so many overweight, obese clients I could work with one-to-one or in a group setting.
Yeah.
But now if I train, let's say on average there's 12 people in a parallel classroom. We got 12 people this weekend on my level 2 gym.
It compounds, right?
It compounds. So 12 people go out and work with, let's say, 10 people each. I indirectly have impacted 120 people.
Good on my math.
Okay, so, but we know it's going to be way more than that across the year. So, we've helped qualify, 10,000 plus people. Even if they all went out and worked with one person, that's 10,000 people. Now, I can't do that on my own. Okay, but we know that actually they've probably gone out and worked with 100 people. That's 100,000 people.
And it becomes this compounding effect of a little army of people ready to go out and make a difference.
This is the question, is if we all want to go out and help people, we've got to find the confidence and the knowledge gap and the process gap to actually do it. And I said to Hayley when we were planning this, it's just like global warming.
Yes, you did.
I think as a society, as a nation, we could all agree that global warming has become more prevalent. If we went back to the 70s, our knowledge or statistics around global warming, we knew it was there, but it wasn't seen as a big deal. And it was like the plane taking off on the runway. And through the 80s and 90s and noughties, as we developed as a world, as a planet, and different decisions were made, we've seen global warming become this runaway train, just like obesity, low back pain, hypertension, all the conditions.
But how do you tackle global warming?
So this is a point, really. Everybody's willing to say global warming's got to stop. Global warming's got to stop. But are we, as an individual, doing all of the individual possible processes that we know and have a knowledge gap and a process gap that says I took action?
Are we doing everything we can to reduce that, and that starts with one action.
With one action.
And then that doubles to two actions and 4 actions, and it literally continues, but it only starts with one action. It starts with one client.
Completely. But it's not I'm going to call out and say it's not enough just to say it starts with one client. You've got to go, I want to help as many people as possible. So from a climate change perspective, it would be, I want to do everything I can. And then we look at NLP and we look at the word everything, we go, everything? That's not as simple as I'm just going to sort my rubbish out and have recycling. That's I'm going to go and get a data check and figure out my carbon footprint per month, per year. And I'm going to counteract that with other actions. I'm going to go and get my electric car. I'm going to go and do this to my house. I'm going to do this to my holiday at this particular place. And I'm going to get there by this particular transport. So my overall carbon footprint, if you say the word, I want to help as many people as possible, it's as many people as possible. If I'm going to do everything
you can
for global warming, I'm going to do everything, every little bit, all the processes, because it's all very well saying it. I'm going to say talk is cheap. Talk is cheap, but actually implementing it, that's when we get the result.
Amazing.
So if we want to, as a nation, reduce the obesity numbers and help this runaway train, we want to get this spaceship, instead of going vertical straight into space, to start plateauing out and cruising at 35,000 feet and start to change the trajectory of that, then
it's going to take all of us doing
it's going to take all of us to do everything we can to help as many people as possible.
I think that,
there we go.
I love that. And I'm sure, actually, if you're listening to that and that resonates and you're like, that's me. I want to help as many people as possible. I want to stop that from skyrocketing.
We could, when I've worked with, and this isn't a disparaging comment to any of the organisations I've worked with, I've loved every minute of it, but the discussions I've had in the classroom have, from lots of different organisations, we've discussed about it being a government issue,
policies,
a policy issue. It's been
a
taxing issue. It's been an educational issue. It's been a local authority issue. It's been loads of people's issues, and we could clearly look at different areas of society and say, actually, they need to be doing more. They need to be doing more. But I want everybody to consider right now that you need to be doing more.
Starts with us, right?
It starts with one person, and that one person would be you. Okay, so for me, if it starts with me and I go and impact one person from one household and tackle their obesity, I impact the family. That now leads to another person, another household, another family. Before I know it, I'm impacting one person, impacts the wife, impacts the husband, impacts the kids, impacts the school. Yeah, do you see how we can just infiltrate in? It starts with just one person. And it's of everyone has to take responsibility here if that's an area you feel strongly about.
And I love how passionate all of this is.
And I know that that's where the next 7 episodes of season 4 are going to go. You know,
100%.
We're going to jump into cardiovascular conditions, metabolic conditions, mental health, respiratory, musculoskeletal, low back pain, and the comorbidities of that.
And also all the nitty gritties of how this actually happens. How do you fill that knowledge gap?
Yeah.
How do you fill that competency gap? How do you then go out and get them? How do you
Because I
work
think
with these?
the two things missing in fitness will be knowledge and confidence.
Yeah.
Or confidence into knowledge.
Yeah.
Either
knowledge,
way around.
confidence combo.
The combo, whichever way around you look at it. Because I know that if you have the knowledge and you show up confidently in yourself, you believe in yourself, your self-worth, your self-belief, your self-efficacy is high or higher than where it is now, you're going to go on and impact that one person in that family.
And apply it over and over again. And actually, it's the same as those little actions you were saying about with climate change. It's the same thing. If you are if you know what you needed to do, let's say we know we needed to recycle, for example, and I was confident that I could do that and do that action, I would do it every day.
Yeah, well, it's a self-perpetuating cycle, isn't it?
Working.
But the other side to knowledge, this self-perpetuating cycle of knowledge, is once you find a topic, and for me, it's obesity and type 2 diabetes, and I love low back pain as well.
That's probably the one
I think for me, the inquiry question for me is pain. Because it covers it spans an awful lot. But once you find your inquiry topic that you jump into, and that's your knowledge inquiry topic, you go on this self-perpetuating cycle up. yet you dive down the rabbit hole and it's just this thirst and hunger to want to know more about it, because it's a topic whereby it opens up a whole can of worms.
And also, if one person's got one condition, chances are they're going to have more conditions, and that's the can of worms. Because you don't need to just know about that one thing, like you said with osteoarthritis. You now need to know about the obesity they have, or about their type 1 diabetes, and how it all falls in towards each other.
Completely. And it ties back all of the principles that say what you learn at level 2, level 3, and then builds upon that knowledge to now be able to work safely, confidently, competently with so many more people.
That's it. Safe, effective, competent.
I think the only other thing I wanted to really highlight in this first podcast is about what is exercise referral or clinical conditions and PARQ to a degree.
Yes, who you can be working with.
Yeah, so I think it's a relevant time to say, in terms of like, if somebody refers a PARQ and you don't hold this knowledge or qualification, you can't work with that person.
So we've just got you really excited about going out and changing the world.
Yeah, completely.
And being really impactful, but you might have a gap here.
But I wanted to put that in here because if you might have got really, really like, I want to go out and work with them. Like, this is who I want to work with, but I can't. God damn it. Like, cheers, Neale and Hayley, for bursting my bubble. But ultimately, that's doing the safe and effective thing.
Yeah.
Okay, that's doing the right thing, is saying
to help them the best you can.
If you really want to help them the best you can, you'd be like, I can't work with you. Because they actually do need somebody with that knowledge and confidence to go in and work with them.
Guidance on a whole nother level.
Because the risk stratification behind working with them is outside of the remit.
Yes.
Completely.
Yeah. And on most qualifications, like level 2 fitness instructor, level 3 PT, level 3 Pilates, level 3 yoga, at that point you don't learn about how to overcome all the knowledge around these health.
Well, it would be like a mechanic. It would be like a mechanic that, say, has done a basic mechanic course, which let's call that, say, level 2, level 3 PT. Okay, and then somebody comes in with an F1 car. Okay, and it's almost like it looks the same. It's the same outcome, but when you look at it, you go, it's a little bit kind of like, I don't really know where I'm at right now.
And they come in with a totally electric car with all these different gadgets, and you learn on a really old school manual car.
Mini or something. Do you know what I mean? An old Nissan Micra. But that's the thing. By all intents and purposes, it all looks the same. It feels the same. But you're like,
still gets you A to B, but
I'm a little lost here. I'm going to have to kind of jump back into the Haynes manual. Exactly, same thing. Okay, yes. So it's understanding that referral process. And the final point I really wanted to highlight is I've had this conversation so many times recently, is people turn around and go, I don't want to work in or be in an exercise referral scheme. And actually, working with clinical conditions, I want you to consider, has nothing to do with working in an exercise referral scheme.
It doesn't mean you're in a local authority gym. It doesn't mean you're in a council-run gym.
Not at all.
And there are so many different ways to use exercise referral that this can be just like how you work with a client right now. It's just that now you have the knowledge and the qualification behind
if you went on the prevalence,
to be able to work with.
If you went on the prevalence of these numbers, they're turning up to your sessions, your classes, and anyway, right now, it just means you can truly get the result. You know, maybe you've been working with somebody that perhaps you shouldn't have been, and they're not getting the result because of this knowledge gap. And through having that knowledge, you go, actually, there's the result I'm after in this person that's overweight. Because it's the knowledge that's needed and the confidence in that process delivery. So I also want to kind of like not acknowledge the fact that right now, we are month 5, 6, 7, I don't know, into coronavirus.
Yeah, a long way.
In terms of future funding for exercise referral schemes, I'm going to say they're going to be...
Well, the council is probably... Well,
they're going to be
first of all, a lot of local authority gyms aren't even opened again.
I don't see them opening, a number of them, for months, if potentially for a long, long time.
And if that's traditionally where exercise referral sits, then
we could comfortably say exercise referral schemes as a whole are going to
flop.
They're going to flop. I don't say they're going to disappear, but they're going to become this distant thing because there's other things heavily within the agendas of local authority.
Yeah.
And this is where you come in. Because
you can start making a massive difference. Even privately, you don't even need to be related to a public funding pot, which is fantastic. So most people think Exercise Referral is just a public funding pot. It's not.
It's not. I'm going to say the last 5-6 years of me working with predominantly guys between 30 and 50 years old, every one of them has fit Exercise Referral, but they've all been private.
Well, even the Exercise Referral gym I had way back when, probably only 5% of that came from a public funding pot. And that, to be honest, they part subsidised themselves. So the rest was all privately funded by the person coming in to a membership, just the same as your clients are paying you.
And that's what I wanted to get out, was that last two bits about the PARQ and what Exercise Referral scheme is or isn't.
Yeah, I'm glad that's cleared up. That's a really nice...
So next week, we're going to jump into our first condition. Okay, it's...
Group of conditions. We're diving into cardiovascular conditions.
Wicked.
And what a place to start. So hypertension, hypercholesterolemia, there's one to say.
Yeah, completely. Bonus points. And then each week, we're going to unfold with more conditions, but really understand, why is it we need to know and understand some nitty gritty. So hopefully we can inspire you, motivate you to be able to be that person that goes, do you know what, I want to be the person that goes out and helps this one person. Or I've got clients that I could go and work with like that. Or I'd love deep down to be able to work with that type of client and truly get them from A to B safely and effectively.
How do you help them?
There we go.
That's what it's about.
So
thank you so much for joining us. If you are on iTunes, which from our stats, most of you are.
Completely.
So if you're on iTunes and you haven't already left us a review, please go ahead and
honestly,
do so.
it's we don't get paid for this. We don't have a sponsor for our podcast. It relies on you guys driving and helping spread the message of parallel coaching, and the reviews you give or any social media shout outs, they go a huge long way. And I know a number of you each week do this and jump inside.
I love the selfie of
the
people
selfies
walking
on
their
stories,
dogs.
FB stories, Instagram stories, inside our inner circle. But the reviews in iTunes are really powerful. So as a way of payment, I suppose, it would be great for you to head over there, leave a 5-star review. It doesn't need to be War and Peace. It could just be really enjoyed this particular episode. I listen to it when I walk a dog, smiley face, whatever. Or even just the 5-star tick and just say thank you. And I think that 20 seconds, if that 10 seconds of gratitude both ways will go a long way.
Helps us reach more people like you.
Wicked. So with that said, we will see you bright and breezy next Thursday for episode number 2, season 4, The Rise of Common Clinical Conditions. See you later.
Bye.
Hi, I'm Neale Bergman.
And I'm Hayley Bergman. Over the last 10 years, we've helped thousands of fitness professionals to get qualified, learn with simplicity, and coach clients with confidence.
We're the first to say that learning and being a FitPro doesn't have to be hard work, and that with the right structure, support and resources, you can become a confident and knowledgeable fitness professional that is dedicated to more.
So how do you learn, qualify and kickstart as a FitPro? This is the FitPro Sessions Podcast with Parallel Coaching.